Several new screens and processes have been added to Compere to allow us to process blanket sales orders. We will first start with the blanket sales order screen, which is the screen by which we enter the blanket sales order for our customer. We'll select to add a blanket sales order. We have the document type set to blanket sales order. We need to identify how long the order is valid. So what is the time period that this blanket sales order is going to cover? And we'll say that the blanket sales order will expire on July 31st. Who is the customer or the business partner to whom we're selling this? In this case, we'll select that it's Seed Farm as our customer. And then the next thing we're going to have to identify is the frequency type. Frequency type could be daily, monthly, quarterly, weekly, and yearly, and those are used in concert with the frequency field where we identify how often within that frequency type something should take place. So for example, if I were to select weekly and set a frequency of 1, that means that this blanket order may have a release once a week. However, if I were to set the frequency type to 2, that would indicate that we could have 2 releases per week. And the release quantity and the release interval will then be policed by Compere's SO release process to make sure that we don't have more than 1 or 2, depending on what the method is, releases per week. In this case, we'll go ahead and set our release frequency to 1. We can now go ahead and add a line to our order, and this is exactly the same as if you were entering a regular sales order line. Identify the product that you're wanting to sell, identify the quantity. Let's say we're going to sell 1,000 azaleas between now and July 31st to Seed Farm. Save that order line. We could add additional lines, or we can come back out to our blanket sales order header and select to complete this order. Completing the order now makes it available for us to generate releases, or essentially actual sales orders for this blanket order. There are 3 ways to do that. The first is we could come into this blanket sales order and select the Generate Release button, which would allow us to generate whatever releases are available to us for this order only. We also would have the option of coming into the Sales Order Release screen, which we'll see in a few minutes, and manually adding a release. The preferred option is going to be a process called Generate SO Releases, by which we can generate releases for all of the blanket sales order that fall within the parameters that we've selected. So in this case, I could put a parameter in here for customer, pick a particular order, range of dates, or if I leave this alone, I'll be shown that there are 2 possible blanket orders out here. One of them, blanket order number 2, already has had a document released, and so it within the frequency interval, so it can't release another one. But then the one we just put in, which is blanket order 3, has created a release for us. So when we come over to look at the sales order release process, we see that there is a release here. When we drill into it, we can see that it is based on our blanket order and that we are ordering 93 azaleas. The quantity has a direct correlation to the total number that were ordered on the blanket order, the frequency of the releases, and the frequency interval. So in this case, once a week, 100 or 1,000 between now and the end of July indicates that there'll be 93 on every single order. We could, certainly come in and edit that, but in this case, we would leave that alone. This order has been completed, and so now this sales release would act just like a regular sales order, going through whatever processes you use for working with that, whether that's just a regular picking process or being processed through the WMS system within Compere. This concludes the review of the blanket orders in the sales area for Compere 3.7.